The House Judiciary Committee subpoenaing FBI operative Peter Strzok to testify in an open hearing next week. The panel questioned the FBI agent behind closed doors last week. Sources say Strzok expressed regret over anti-Trump text messages that prompted his removal from the Mueller investigation. With that, we bring in our panel. Kent Zimmerman, National Law Journal contributor, former general counsel, David Schwartz, defense attorney, as well as former prosecutor. Gentlemen, nice to see both of you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
His attorney last night saying that he may not comply, quote unquote, with this subpoena. David, to you, to most of us, we get a subpoena, we have to comply. Why is Mr. Strzok different if he is?
Well, first of all, Leland, the attorney said that he couldn't show up on that date, so he wasn't sure if he was going to comply or not. Not complying is not a great option here because you could be held in criminal contempt. You could have civil contempt charges brought against you as well. And unless you have some sort of privilege, some sort of executive privilege, state privilege, there's a big problem with not complying. So I believe he should comply, but they need to prepare him so he could be well prepared for his testimony.
Conceivably, Ken, it would be contempt of Congress if you don't comply with a congressional subpoena. One of the sources from inside the room last week when Strzok went in and answered questions said he was smug and laughed off a lot of questions about what had gone on when he was at the FBI. You can see Catherine Herridge questioning Strzok as he walked in to the room. What's the dangers here in complying?
Listen, if he does not comply, you're both absolutely right. He could be held in contempt of Congress. There's a monetary fine attached if that happens, and also he could go to jail. Usually, contempt of Congress charge could allow for between 1 month and 12 months in jail. That's happened before, and interestingly, officials in both parties have not complied with subpoenas from Congress in the past.
Why would he be willing to accept that? What's so bad about testifying that being in contempt is better?
I don't think it is better, and I think usually when people like him make noise about not wanting to comply, usually over time they back down and they do comply. I think that's likely in this case. He testified for close to 11 hours last week in a closed hearing. Now they're asking him to come back in an open hearing, and my advice would be comply, play it straight, tell the truth, and that's what he should do, and I think he eventually will.
Well, tell the truth seems to be a going piece of advice in Washington, although questions about how often it is done. Here is Mr. Strzok's attorney on perhaps one of the reasons they're going to make the argument they don't think he should testify. Take a listen.
This is not a search for truth. It is a chance for Republican members of the House to preen and posture before their most radical, conspiracy-minded constituents.
All right, so David, this is the argument that is being set up. My guy can't get a fair hearing, therefore he shouldn't show up. Does that fly?
I understand the argument, and I don't disagree with the argument. However, he has to show up. The Congress has broad powers, broad subpoena powers. Certainly this is a relevant issue. Certainly those text messages is something that the House Judiciary Committee has to investigate. So although, of course, there are political motivations on each side, they have to comply with the subpoena. He's going to have to testify, and the attorney's going to have to do his best to limit the inquiry to not avoid, so they could avoid any privileged areas.
All right, Ken, we'll take this one step further. Possibility of criminal charges here. If so, it'd be easy for him just to take the fifth on everything, but it seems as though he didn't do that during the 11-hour closed hearing session.
Well, we don't know exactly what happened in that closed hearing last week. There has been a request by his lawyer to release the transcripts for transparency. The transcripts haven't been released, but there's an open hearing coming up. We're probably going to hear what he has to say, assuming he testifies in that. I think he should. And we'll see. But sure, if he doesn't comply, there is certainly a possibility of criminal charges. They'd have to take that to a U.S. attorney who would take it to a federal judge.
Yeah, I was thinking about criminal charges
kind of
for
several steps ahead.
For what he did rather than whether or not he complied. But we'll get to that sometime soon, I'm sure next week as this comes around. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Molly?
You bet. Happy 4th.